complaint comes now. Plaintiff, Bullhorn Betty, acting as pro se in this action, brings this complaint for defamation, libel, slander, tortious interference with prospective economic advantage, intentional infliction of emotional distress, civil conspiracy and concert of action, negligence, and unjust enrichment, against defendant, Queen B, and alleges as follows. Jurisdiction and venue. 1. This is a civil action seeking monetary and punitive relief for defamation, libel, slander, tortious interference with prospective economic advantage, intentional infliction of emotional distress, civil conspiracy and concert of action, negligence, and unjust enrichment. 2. The court has subject matter jurisdiction over the subject matter and the parties hereto. 3. Queen B and the Hive have been residents of redacted county in the redacted state, now, and for 90 days continuously and immediately preceding this date. 4. This court has personal jurisdiction over the defendant because the defendant resides in the 9th Circuit of redacted county, redacted state. 5. Venue is proper because a substantial part of the events or omissions giving rise to the claim occurred in this circuit and because defendant resides in this circuit. Parties. 6. Plaintiff, BHB is an individual doing business as a sole proprietor and existing under the laws of redacted state with her principal place of business in redacted city and state. 7. Defendant, Queen B is an individual residing in redacted city, redacted county, redacted state. Nature of action. 8. BHB is an independent video journalist, a truth and transparency advocate, and a content creator who covers true crime cases nationwide by traveling to locations of interest and reporting from the scene on her YouTube channel, Bullhorn Betty, for her 24,000+ subscribers. BHB receives monetary compensation from YouTube's parent company Google through Google's AdSense program. YouTube-Google agreement and term attached. As Exhibit A. 9. BHB has dedicated the last 6 years of BHB's life to helping victims and victims' families to bringing attention to cases that have gone unsolved or bringing attention to a missing person whose whereabouts are unknown. BHB also provides resources to those families in a variety of ways including but not limited to flyers, posters, searching, and physically posting flyers among other activities, and raises funds for those efforts. There are a lot of exhibits in this filing. The document is 225 pages. You may need to pause to read the exhibits. As I have said in my other videos on these court documents, I am not a lawyer and I do not claim to be one. I purchased these documents in order to bring them to you. Prior to BHB becoming a content creator, BHB was a full-time volunteer community advocate and coordinator in redacted county. BHB's volunteer work includes but is not limited to commentary, reporting, and advocating, including protests around the state of redacted and other areas around the country, bringing awareness to victims and causes. 11. During Hurricane Ian, BHB went into flooded areas in North Port, Sarasota County, Florida, with a team to assist families and flood victims in evacuating their homes as flood water rose. BHB, with the assistance of others, helped 5 families and about 41 dogs and puppies evacuate the area. These families were unknown to BHB. However, some of these activities were broadcast to BHB's audience and are available to the general public on BHB's YouTube channel. 12. After Hurricane Ian moved past Florida, BHB raised money on BHB's YouTube channel for victims in Fort Myers, Lee County, Florida. BHB personally shopped for the food and delivered the food and other supplies to the designated food/supply drop-off before getting approval, as media, to enter the restricted area of Fort Myers to tour the damage with other media organizations. 13. BHB has personally interviewed Dwayne "Dog the Bounty Hunter" Chapman and sold that interview to TMZ. 14. News Nation broadcasted an interview BHB and others had with Cassie Laundrie while on her Cassie Laundrie's front yard. Cassie Laundrie is the sister to Brian Laundrie that was the suspected murderer of Gabby Petito. 15. BHB has been observed in multiple news segments locally, nationally, and internationally. BHB has been interviewed by French news organizations, European news organizations, British news organizations, Spanish news organizations, and Australian news organizations. 16. BHB's commentary, reporting, and/or content has been used in multiple documentaries over the last 2 years. 17. BHB has appeared on and/or BHB's comments have been published in local, national, and international publications including but not limited to The New York Post, New York Times, Inside Edition, 48 Hours Australia, News Nation, Fox News, CNN, and many smaller and local stations or enterprises. 18. BHB has participated in several documentaries in the USA and abroad. 19. BHB has committed her career to helping her community locally, which has flourished into a full-time career that requires BHB to travel throughout the United States of America covering true crime cases and providing resources sponsored by BHB's channel to those families in need. The resources provided by BHB to these families include flyers, posters, banners, t-shirts, keychains, organizing searches, and some financial resources that are sponsored by BHB's channel members and subscribers. BHB is dedicated to giving back to those in need. 20. Queen Bee runs multiple YouTube channels and has repeatedly published defamatory statements about BHB on those channels. 21. Queen Bee has predominantly targeted BHB over the last 20 months so that Queen could publicly condemn and shame BHB on her channel outlined in more detail below. 22. On or about January 5, 2022, it appears to be the first defaming video Queen produced about BHB. Queen has received around 590 views since its release date. 23. Over the next 14 months subsequent to Queen's first video, Queen's commentary became increasingly more aggressive towards BHB. 24. Over the next 14 months subsequent to Queen's first video, Queen incited her audience more often and with more damaging language designed to elicit emotional responses from them in an effort for them to attack BHB on BHB's channel daily. 25. Queen elicited help from others, including but not limited to subscribers, members, and other creators on social media platforms, including but not limited to Discord and other social media platforms like Discord, to coordinate and conspire to attack, watch, monitor, and keep under surveillance online and offline, intimidate, harass, and cause disruption to BHB and BHB's YouTube channel. 26. Queen elicited help from others on messaging type of apps, including but not limited to Queen's phone text messaging, Messenger, Signal and other text-type messaging platforms like Messenger to coordinate and conspire to attack, watch, monitor, and keep under surveillance online and offline, intimidate, harass, and cause disruption to BHB and BHB's YouTube channel. 27. Queen used social media platforms, including but not limited to Discord and other social media platforms like Discord to share inaccurate and knowingly false information about BHB, including information about BHB Queen received from others that Queen elicited to watch, monitor, and keep under surveillance online and offline for others to use at the request of Queen. 28. Queen used messaging type of apps, including but not limited to Queen's phone text messaging, Messenger, Signal and other text-type messaging platforms like Messenger to share inaccurate and knowingly false information about BHB, including information about BHB Queen received from others that Queen elicited to watch, monitor, and keep under surveillance online and offline for others to use at the request of Queen. 29. Queen conspired to falsely report BHB's channel to YouTube by brigading on Twitter and encouraging others to help. See Exhibit B. Queen has published numerous false and defamatory statements about BHB, accusing BHB of criminal activity, falsely portraying BHB's work as a journalist, and attempting to humiliate and damage BHB's reputation in the eyes of BHB's subscribers and the general public. Over the last 12 months, Queen has made too many false and defaming declaration statements to list. 31. Due to the actions of Queen, BHB's views, compensation, and placement on the YouTube platform have been diminished. However, Queen has received increased views, compensation, and placement. Queen's views for the defaming videos on June 2, 2023, had over 8,500 views. Queen has received a lot of monetary compensation to continue this campaign of harassment and defamation against BHB. See Exhibit C and T. Specifically, during the 12 months preceding this action, Queen made the following statements about BHB during public livestream broadcasts and/or videos published on Queen's YouTube channels. See Exhibits D and E. A. Queen accused BHB of stalking, harassing, and pretending to report and troll so BHB could make money from unwitting people. B. Queen defamed BHB by referring to BHB as a tragedy pimp, as Queen knowingly and falsely stated as fact that BHB does not actually look for missing people and that BHB only harasses communities and breaks the law. C. Queen has stated with impunity that BHB is exploiting victims by covering their cases on BHB's YouTube channel, although Queen's channel covers the same types of cases which Queen also derives profit from. See Exhibit F. D. Queen has conspired on Queen's YouTube channels with others to take BHB's channel out and or have BHB's account terminated by mass reporting the channel on Twitter, which is what YouTube refers to as brigading. Queen publicly elicited help from her audience and other content creators Queen associates with for the sole purpose of harassing, intimidating, keeping under surveillance and just causing constant emotional distress to BHB on a daily basis. E. Queen has elicited help from others to cause disruption to BHB's live stream in a coordinated attack to flash mob BHB's chat and to further disrupt business practices and show production. F. Queen has elicited help from others to cause disruption to BHB's live stream in a coordinated attack by Queen's audience assuming the screen name of blank screen or a variation of blank screen to harass BHB's live stream and to cause discomfort and distress to BHB's supporters, subscribers, and members in a flash mob type of assault on BHB's chat and to further disrupt business practices and show production. G. Queen made multiple statements about BHB's mental state and provided statements of fact on Queen's channel that BHB is mentally ill and even called BHB schizophrenic in an effort to further humiliate BHB and to cause additional harm to BHB's reputation and ability to make money on YouTube. H. Queen has called BHB lolcow hogs and other degrading names to incite her audience to maliciously attack BHB and to further dehumanize BHB in the eyes of the public on a daily basis, and for hours at a time. Also, see Exhibit G. I. Queen has made false statements by telling Queen's audience BHB was paid by Molly Golightly, a former YouTube channel, to report findings on Queen. This is false. Exhibit H. J. Queen stated that BHB collects money from BHB's YouTube channel and does not search or help in the cases covered, despite hundreds of hours of footage to the contrary. This is an attempt to deprive BHB of income provided through BHB's channel, to cause maximum reputational damage, and to intentionally deprive BHB of funds needed to continue BHB's work and efforts. K. Queen stated on Queen's channel that BHB had sexual intercourse with a YouTuber by the name of Dolly Vision. Queen further stated that BHB had sexual intercourse with another YouTuber by the name of JLR. I have collaborated with both creators as well as many other creators over the last 2 years, both male and female. This may jeopardize future business opportunities and or work assignments with future collaboration and or collaborator or collaborators, especially if that individual or individuals is male. Queen intentionally, willfully, and with malice and aforethought defamed BHB in an effort to humiliate, dehumanize, embarrass, and cause great harm to BHB's reputation and harm to BHB, financially, personally, and professionally. Further in this video, Queen stated that there were no locals at Leilani Simon's house until BHB, Dolly Vision, and Molly Golightly arrived in Chatham County. That is false. There were several local people and a lot of media in front of the home when BHB arrived. This video received 9,528 views. It is believed Queen did this solely for the purposes of inciting Queen's audience to attack BHB publicly. While BHB was live streaming in front of Leilani Simon's home, located in Georgia, with other media and other individuals unknown to BHB, Queen actively encouraged Queen's audience to call the Chatham County Police Department on BHB. Chatham County Police Department received over 50 calls from people not even in the state of Georgia. This was to intentionally cause conflict with BHB and the local law enforcement personnel. All such calls were unfounded and caused law enforcement to redirect resources to speak with BHB and others versus looking for the whereabouts of Quinton Simon, a 20-month-old allegedly murdered by his mother, Leilani Simon, and Quinton Simon's whereabouts were unknown at the time. Queen received monetary and other compensation for this conduct, including inflated view at BHB's expense and detriment. Queen has posted that BHB will need bail money and that BHB is going to jail. BHB has always researched and followed the laws when covering a case. Queen has further stated multiple times BHB should be in jail. Queen made an attempt to have BHB arrested despite BHB committing no crime or crimes. And Queen repeatedly referred to BHB as Strangler Betty, Battery Betty and other defaming statements in an effort to devalue BHB in the eyes of the public, redirect subscribers and members from BHB's YouTube channel to Queen's YouTube channel, to force BHB off the YouTube platform, and cause financial, personal and reputational harm to BHB. This conduct has also caused the infliction of emotional distress as BHB has invested vast amounts of time, effort, and a heavy financial burden to build a creative and successful YouTube channel. Queen has profited off BHB by airing and disseminating unlawful and defaming content. Queen has publicly declared multiple times on several different dates, on multiple live streams that Queen is targeting BHB, and wants BHB off YouTube and BHB's channel terminated. Queen has conspired with others to target BHB even though BHB was unaware of Queen's existence, nor had any interaction with Queen prior to this unprovoked harassment. Also, see Exhibit I. On or about March 2023, BHB became aware of Queen B making defamatory videos about BHB, and BHB was mortified when BHB reviewed the content on Queen's YouTube channel. BHB was left humiliated and helpless. BHB tried everything to get this conduct to stop, but the more BHB tried to stop this conduct, the worse the conduct got. BHB publicly threatened legal action, and Queen mocked BHB and continued making defaming content day after day for hours on end. BHB was living in a nightmare BHB could not get out of. Finally, in April 2023, BHB had enough and sent a cease and desist letter to Queen, but to no avail. The outrageous and egregious behavior continued to escalate. On or about October 2022 through November 2022, Queen stated on multiple occasions not to support BHB's channel or live streams. Queen hijacked multiple live streams BHB produced and used them as her own content, depriving BHB of those views and compensation while unlawfully airing BHB's content in real time. Queen stated Queen was unconcerned about airing BHB's content because Queen was going to privatize the live stream so BHB would be unable to place a copyright strike on Queen's channel. Queen displayed on her channel before and after renderings of BHB's subscriber count, celebrated, and was elated on Queen's live streams that BHB was losing subscribers and money. Queen stated multiple times to Queen's audience to keep going and not stop because they were making progress against BHB. Queen actively, willfully, maliciously, and with intent to cause financial hardship, personal, and professional damage to BHB. Since the onset of this targeted campaign against BHB, BHB's subscriber numbers have barely moved. It is well documented that Queen sent and/or helped fund Aileen, one of Queen's subscribers that Queen supported, encouraged, and/or enticed to come in or stay in Chatham County, Georgia to interfere with business being conducted by BHB, resulting in BHB being assaulted by Aileen when Aileen hit BHB's nose with Aileen's cell phone. Although no arrest took place, BHB possesses the incident report of the altercation. This caused additional emotional distress and shows this honorable court the lengths that Queen is willing to go to in order to cause harm to BHB. Exhibit J. Queen has openly and publicly declared on Queen's livestream broadcasted on Queen's YouTube channel that Queen reached out to a victim's family and discussed BHB in a negative light, and unprovoked, while that family was still grieving the loss of their loved ones. Queen did this with malice and to cause reputational harm to BHB when Queen reached out to Ethan Chapin's family to let them know BHB used a video from Ethan's memorial site. Queen had no knowledge whether the family provided permission or if there was a release, nor was it any of Queen's business to interfere. Queen only cared about attacking BHB and not the emotional state of the Chapin family. Queen has discussed openly and publicly declared on Queen's livestream broadcasted on Queen's YouTube channel that Queen reached out to suspects alleging BHB was threatening and harassing them. This could have caused great bodily harm to BHB. BHB maintains BHB did not threaten anyone or break the law. This is supported by the Chatham County Police Department incident report. Queen made unsolicited contact with the family of Quinton Simon, a 20-month-old who was murdered by his mother, Leilani Simon. Although BHB never threatened the family, Queen called the family and instructed the family to call law enforcement to report BHB's threats, which the family did. BHB is in possession of this incident report provided by the Chatham County Police Department from a public records request. Exhibit K. Queen encouraged a panel member, Voices for the Voiceless, who at the time was a daily guest on Queen's live stream, to make and or distribute a binder that purportedly displays BHB's alleged criminal history. Based upon public declaration by Queen on Queen's YouTube channel, during multiple and different live streams, it is distributed to the police departments and sheriff departments where BHB is covering a case in an effort to humiliate BHB and prevent BHB from acquiring certain interviews BHB may have otherwise been provided. BHB further states Queen is well aware that most of the charges Queen and Queen's associates distributed were unfounded, dropped, and or dismissed through due process. However, that did not stop Queen from instructing others and eliciting help from others to distribute defaming material in an effort to cause BHB financial, professional, reputational, and personal harm. 33. The intentional, willful, and malicious actions of Queen B have caused irreparable harm to BHB's finances and reputation, personally and professionally. The defaming videos and posts will never fully be removed from the internet. This will be a burden BHB will have to deal with BHB's entire life, moving forward on YouTube and other social media platforms, and into perpetuity. This will never be reversed and may cost BHB future business dealings because BHB has sold content for profit or provided photographs and or videography to other organizations within the United States of America borders and globally. If BHB wants to change jobs or occupations in the future, BHB will forever have to deal with the results of this unprovoked attack. BHB affirms BHB does not know these people nor has engaged with these people to elicit this conduct, attack, and unlawful malicious action from Queen in this matter other than to defend BHB against this unfathomable attack by Queen. 34. Queen became known to BHB during the Quinton Simon case between October and November 2022. Due to the content theft of BHB's livestream broadcasts Queen illegally aired on Queen's YouTube channel. Since BHB usually does not pay attention to other creators or what those creators' opinions are of BHB, after that case, it was out of sight, out of mind. However, someone unknown to BHB notified BHB that a creator, who was later identified as Queen, was going after BHB and Queen had declared publicly Queen was going to remove BHB from the YouTube platform. On or about March 2023, this information was brought to BHB's attention. BHB researched who Queen was in an effort for BHB to defend BHB against these unfathomable attacks by Queen. This was not to be malicious nor had any intent to be malicious. 35. On April 4, 2023, BHB mailed by certified mail and with a return receipt request, a cease and desist letter to Queen to cease unlawful conduct. Queen willfully and intentionally avoided receipt of this letter and it was ultimately returned to BHB as undelivered after multiple attempts by the United States Postal Service. See Exhibit L. 36. BHB emailed a copy of the cease and desist letter to Queen. The email was known to BHB because Queen sent a prior email to BHB from the email address used. See Exhibit M. 37. Following Queen's receipt of the cease and desist letter by email, Queen scheduled live streams for 2 consecutive days immediately following receipt to continue Queen's campaign of insults and demeaning names directed at BHB. Queen intentionally, willfully, and with a forethought failed to adhere to or take the letter seriously regarding Queen's conduct and actions on and or against BHB. 38. It seemed daily that Queen would produce live streams that only targeted and demeaned BHB and only BHB for hours each and every day with the exception of very few days over the course of the 14 months preceding this action against Queen. 39. Queen has requested from others BHB's home address Exhibit N. and whereabouts, and for those Queen elicited help, to monitor BHB's movements online and offline, distribute any finding of BHB privately or publicly to Queen and/or Queen's team, and then Queen would make a defaming post or live stream broadcasts for hours demeaning and defaming BHB publicly with whatever was discovered by Queen's team Queen elicited help from. Queen has a history of stalking and other similar conduct towards other individuals, including keeping them under surveillance. One such event occurred recently when Aileen was in Chesapeake, Virginia, purportedly to visit a friend. BHB is in receipt of private text messages between Queen and Aileen, Exhibit O. Queen is directing Aileen to go to Dolly Vision's private home to disturb him. What is most shocking about these revelations is for 20 months Queen has been advising Queen's audience BHB was engaged in this conduct when all along it has been Queen and those Queen elicited help from. 40. BHB is a content creator with multiple platforms that leverage localism to bring news and entertainment services and value to consumers and advertisers through its alternative media, digital, mobile media, and social media platforms. 41. BHB operates, programs, or provides sales and other services to multiple social media platforms and related reach to a worldwide audience and households. 42. BHB invests vast resources, including time, effort, talent, creativity, and money to provide BHB's viewers and readers with high-quality crime story reporting and to produce news stories and programs that are original to BHB and that constitute copyrightable subject matter under the law of the United States. 43. BHB is a content creator who travels the United States to provide creative and new crime stories for BHB's audience. 44. Queen was and is aware and had knowledge that, over the last 20 months, which is the subject of this action, the YouTube platform and compensation received through Google AdSense was and is BHB's primary source of income. 45. On or about June 2023, Queen became aware of the pending lawsuit filed by BHB. Queen publicly threatened BHB on Queen's YouTube channel, and this was not Queen's first time publicly threatening or using threatening language towards BHB. Queen engaged in more defamatory conduct and outrageous outbursts on multiple live streams on Queen's public YouTube channel. 46. From June 2023 through October 2023, Queen was heard on multiple channels speaking as a public channel guest, conversing about and or clearing up issues with Aileen, and addressing information raised in the original complaint. It is upon information and belief Aileen is not the only one Queen has addressed in connection with this action. 47. Upon information and belief, after the initiation of this lawsuit, Queen initiated several PayPal fundraising campaigns raising funds for these proceedings and actions that are before this honorable court. During these fundraising campaigns, Queen willfully, maliciously, intentionally, and with reckless disregard for BHB, misrepresented this lawsuit to her audience, the public, and other content creators. Queen publicly elicited help from others publicly and privately. Others Queen elicited for financial help shared her campaigns publicly and privately. This was another attempt for Queen to defame BHB for profit. It is estimated Queen received about $20,000, but the amount was over and above $10,000. These campaigns are no longer available and the URLs are no longer active. Exhibit P. 48. Upon information and belief, after the initiation of this lawsuit, Queen started engaging potential witnesses publicly and privately to craft their statements and what they, whomever Queen was conversing with, might say in a court proceeding. 49. Upon information and belief, after the initiation of this lawsuit, it appears thumbnails on Queen's channels were changed, certain videos were no longer available and many of the content creators Queen relied upon and Queen elicited help from started removing certain damaging content from their respective channels, but those deletions were not removed because of BHB. It was content Queen made admissions on. 50. Upon information and belief, after the initiation of this lawsuit, Queen has engaged in practices that intimidated others to continue Queen's elicited campaign of targeted harassment and other outrageous behavior, as detailed above, against BHB. Those who refuse Queen and individuals Queen elicits to help would then engage in the same style of targeted harassment and intimidation against those creators. One such person, Jane Doe, aka Deets on the Streets, closed her account as a direct result of those attacks. However, as of this filing, the account is active and all prior videos were removed from public view. Unbeknownst to BHB, another content creator, Jane Doe, aka Bash, was publicly attacked in a similar fashion after Queen coordinated, encouraged, knowingly, and/or elicited the help of Bash to come to Kingsport, Tennessee, where BHB was located to participate in a search for a missing woman, Layla Santinello, on or about September 17, 2023. The search for Layla Santinello went very well. There were no issues or problems encountered. When Bash was required to report her findings to Queen and others by phone, Bash was honest and said pleasant things about BHB. This incited Queen and Queen's audience, which Queen has, in the past, elicited help from as well as from other creators, to target Bash. Bash did not close her channel, but changed the focus of her channel away from BHB and on to new topics. 51. Since the onset of this action against Queen, Queen has elicited help from other creators, such as Jane Doe aka Burnt Toast. Queen has on multiple occasions referenced publicly on Queen's YouTube channel that Burnt Toast is assisting her. Burnt Toast is maintaining Queen's attorney's receipt and what Queen has paid her attorney, but more importantly, Queen has elicited the help of Burnt Toast to continue Queen's campaign of harassment and intimidation against BHB. Queen has distributed the court documents behind the scenes to the individuals Queen originally elicited for help. Then Queen's team goes to work at smearing BHB publicly on Queen's behalf. Otherwise, what good purpose does Queen have for distributing these documents to those very channels that Queen previously elicited help from and knows will produce defaming content about BHB unless Queen has a hidden agenda or another ulterior motive? Burnt Toast also started harassing Dolly Vision with a taunting post that BHB and Dolly Vision's private conversation messages would be requested through Discovery and broadcasted on the YouTube platform for all to see. This could be construed as intimidating a witness. Why else would Burnt Toast be so heavily involved in the outcome of this action if not for the coordination between Queen and Burnt Toast, which supports BHB's claims including but not limited to civil conspiracy in concert of action, as outlined herein and is the subject matter of this action? Exhibit Q. (52) Queen only associates with others who are willing to attack, harass, intimidate, mock, make fun of, humiliate, and cause damage to BHB. 53. Queen has not targeted any other person in the same fashion and or manner or for the amount of time Queen has continued this campaign against BHB. 54. Queen has not made the number of videos about any other person and or creator other than BHB. 55. Queen targeted BHB and wanted BHB terminated from the YouTube platform and Queen put action behind those threats. 56. Queen did not just want BHB terminated from the YouTube platform, Queen was seeking to destroy BHB financially, personally, and professionally. Queen intended to damage BHB to the point BHB would no longer be able to maintain BHB's livelihood. Queen's conduct was overwhelmingly reckless, extreme, egregious, and outrageous. Count 1, defamation. 57. BHB reaffirms prior paragraphs and incorporates them herein. 58. In accordance with Illinois law, to prove defamation against a defendant or defendants, a plaintiff must prove 4 elements in a defamation case. First, they must prove that the defendant made a false statement about the plaintiff. Then, they must prove that the defendant relayed the false statement to a third party. Libel and slander are different types of defamation. Libel is a written false statement about another person, and slander is a false oral statement about another person. Illinois considers libel and slander the same when it comes to defamation lawsuits. A defamation case can prove either libel or slander. The next step in a defamation case is proving fault by the defendant. The defendant must have displayed at least negligent fault for the plaintiff to prove defamation. Illinois courts apply a reasonable grounds standard of negligence in defamation cases. The defendant must either know the statement was false or believe it to be true but lack reasonable grounds for that belief. If the statement is not a defamation per se statement, the plaintiff must show the court that the defendant or defendant's statement or statements caused harm to them or their business. This harm can be reputational or financial. 59. In order to state a defamation claim, plaintiff must plead facts demonstrating that the defendant made a false statement about plaintiff, that the defendant made an unprivileged publication of the statement to a third party, and that the publication caused damages to plaintiff. Stone v. Paddock Publications Incorporated, 2011 IL App, 1st, 093386. A statement is defamatory if it harms an individual's reputation by lowering the individual in the eyes of the community or if it deters the community from associating with the individual. Emphasis added. ID statements can be considered defamatory per se or defamatory per quat. Colegas v. Heftel Broadcasting Corporation, 154 IL 2D1, 10, 1992. A statement is defamatory per se if its defamatory character is obvious and apparent on its face and injury to the plaintiff's reputation can be presumed. Owen v. Carr, 113 IL 2D 273, 277, 1986. In a defamation per quat action, damage to the plaintiff's reputation is not presumed. Rather, the plaintiff must plead and prove special damages to recover. Bryson v. News America Publications Incorporated, 174 IL 2D77, 103, 1996. Illinois recognizes 5 categories of statements that are defamatory per se. 1. Words imputing the commission of a criminal offense. 2. Words imputing an infection with a loathsome communicable disease. 3. Words imputing an individual's inability to perform his employment duties or a lack of integrity in performing those duties. 4. Words imputing a lack of ability in an individual's profession or prejudicing an individual in his or her profession. And 5. Words imputing an individual's engagement in fornication or adultery. Stone, 2011 IL App, 1st, 093386. Because a claim of defamation per se relieves plaintiff of the obligation to prove actual damages, it must be pleaded with a heightened level of precision and particularity. BHB Contents Queen had full knowledge of the consequences Queen's actions would have on BHB. Queen had every intention of damaging BHB by knowingly peddling false statements and information about BHB and eliciting others to also peddle the same false information. When Queen sought out others to assist Queen assumed the responsibility for the damages to BHB by the other individuals. Queen's only focus was damaging BHB by defamation in an effort to embarrass BHB off the YouTube platform or enrage Queen's audience so much so that Queen's audience would then harass BHB by larger numbers on a daily basis. When Queen incited her audience and those members acted on her behalf, Queen assumed the responsibility those actions caused BHB. When Queen created a situation Queen could no longer control, Queen assumed responsibility for the resulting damage to BHB. 60. Here, Queen intentionally, willfully, and maliciously disseminated false and misleading statements and or information about BHB to Queen's audience and other individuals, a third party, by making false claims and statements about BHB on Queen's live stream broadcast to thousands of people and posting written articles and other defaming content on Queen's community tab, which is in print format, to thousands of people with malicious aforethought, and with reckless disregarding for the law or the extreme harm Queen's conduct has had on BHB financially, personally, and professionally. The extensive nature of this claim is outlined in the Nature of Action section, but also attached are more specific statements directly from Queen, broadcasted publicly and within the public forum on Queen's YouTube channel. Since the initiation of this action against Queen, some of those videos are no longer in the public domain. Attached hereto as Exhibit D is a collection of video URL links with timestamps of oral communication to a third party disseminated on Queen's YouTube channel. Attached hereto as Exhibit E is a collection of posts from Queen's YouTube channel in print format which are found under the Community tab section. #61, under the Community tab section, Queen has reshared and or reposted other defaming and false content about BHB that others posted on those smaller channels when those smaller channels were not getting enough views. Queen would repost knowingly false videos, live stream broadcasts, and or posts from other channels Queen elicited for help which would boost those smaller channels' placement higher on the YouTube platform and assist in suppressing BHB's content. Queen would direct Queen's larger audience to the smaller channels to preview the disparaging content designed to defame and target BHB and only focus on BHB and occasionally harass and or target BHB's associates to the same degree as BHB. The constant defaming content has had negative consequences and damage to BHB. #62, Queen did not intend to be factual. Queen's only mission was to damage and or destroy BHB in the eyes of the public and YouTube community at all costs, for financial gain and the potential notoriety for removing BHB from the YouTube platform, if Queen had been successful. #63, Queen has made so many publicly defaming, untrue statements about BHB over the preceding 12 months, that there are too many to count. The amount is somewhere at approximately 1,000 statements or more if BHB had to estimate. It is overwhelming, extensive, outrageous, and egregious. #64, when Queen reposted knowingly false and or defaming content and information, Queen assumed responsibility for the damage it would cause BHB, especially when promoting those false and or defaming content and information as true. Queen supports smaller channels when the smaller channels create defaming content about BHB. Therefore, Queen has tried to shield Queen from the most outrageous defaming claims by simply reposting defaming and knowingly false information about BHB from others. However, for Queen reposting those videos, those videos would not have received the level of views Queen's channel and audience offered and redirected individuals over to the offending video and/or livestream broadcast. Queen assumed responsibility for her actions for willfully and maliciously sharing false and misleading information about BHB on Queen's much larger YouTube platform than that of the smaller channel. 65. When Queen allowed individuals on her panel and allowed those individuals to defame BHB and engaged in the defaming conversation with those individuals for hours on end, Queen assumed responsibility for the damage those individuals caused BHB. Queen is in full control of Queen's channel. Queen controls who comes up on the panel, and how long those individuals are on the Queen's panel among many things. As an owner of a YouTube account, an owner has the ability to block comments, and/or certain words in the chat and block individuals not following the specific rule within that channel's chat. Queen has all the control. Queen allowed others to damage BHB and failed to prevent and/or mitigate the damage being done publicly on Queen's livestream broadcasts to thousands of individuals. Queen is responsible for Queen's channel and any damage caused by Queen's channel. 66. Queen has declared publicly Queen is aware the internet is forever, yet intentionally, willfully, maliciously, and with a forethought defamed BHB for profit, notoriety, and attention. Queen failed to demonstrate any duty of care or moral turpitude. 67. Queen had to have an expectation that Queen's malicious and outrageous conduct would be and continues to be damaging to BHB, past, present, and into perpetuity. BHB maintains BHB had never spoken to or about Queen in any capacity prior to this targeted attack, leaving BHB confused as to why BHB was the target of such a defaming campaign and attack designed to ruin BHB financially, personally, and professionally. 68. Although this is one count, multiple claims reside and exist under this count. Therefore, Queen is in violation of Illinois' Slander and Libel Act because Queen falsely used, uttered, and/or published words, whether knowingly false or lacked reasonable grounds for belief about BHB which have caused damage to BHB financially, personally, and professionally. BHB is entitled to judgment against Queen, jointly and severally, in a sum in excess of $25,000 for compensatory damages, a sum in excess of $25,000 for exemplary and punitive damages, injunctive relief, and such other relief as the court may deem just and proper. Count 2. Tortious interference with business prospective economic advantage. 69. BHB reaffirms prior paragraphs and incorporates them herein. 70. For BHB to prove tortious interference with business prospective economic advantage against Queen, certain elements have to be proven. A plaintiff must prove 5 elements in a tortious interference with business prospective economics case in Illinois. Under Illinois law, the elements of a claim for tortious interference with business relationships, more commonly called tortious interference with prospective economic advantage, are that 1. Plaintiff had a reasonable expectation of entering into or continuing a valid business relationship with a third party. 2. Defendant knew of that expectation. 3. Defendant intentionally and without justification interfered with that expectation. 4. Defendant's interference prevented the plaintiff's legitimate expectancy from ripening into a valid business relationship. 5. Plaintiff suffered damages as a result of the interference. 71. In this matter, BHB had a reasonable expectation of entering into an agreement with YouTube, 1, which BHB had because BHB's YouTube channel is monetized, and in order to receive an income from the AdSense program, BHB is required to follow certain guidelines, which include but not limited to metrics and analytics for subscribers, members, super chat, super sticker, and super thanks. YouTube also monitors the popularity of certain content based on algorithms of what is known as likes. Queen covers the same types of stories and cases and acts under the same agreement as BHB and has knowledge related to how to derive income from YouTube, too. Queen has knowledge of this and has incited her audience to give unfavorable reviews, which include but are not limited to the use of the thumbs down feature, subscriptions, and whether the video has been reported for any type of violations. When Queen conspired with others to take this action, which again is known as brigading, it pushed the videos down so that it is not seen by as many people, which puts Queen's competing videos in a more favorable light in an effort to capitalize as a competitor or competing channel to BHB. 3. This has caused substantial harm to BHB's placement on the YouTube platform. Queen has flagrantly boasted publicly on Queen's YouTube channel, advising all Queen's subscribers to go to BHB's channel to flash mob BHB and then unsubscribe, which causes damage to BHB because YouTube's algorithms suppress BHB's content due to the mass subscriber count drop. 4. Due to Queen's willful malicious actions against BHB, BHB has sustained severe damages financially, personally, and professionally. 5. YouTube channel analytics. The 6 most important video metrics is attached here too as Exhibit R. (72) Although this is not the appropriate venue or jurisdiction for copyright infringement action or claim, it is appropriate to raise the theft and interference as evidence of tortious interference with prospective economic advantage. 73. Queen aired Betty's live stream broadcasts multiple times on Queen's channel in real time, depriving BHB of the viewers, placement on the YouTube platform, and compensation. 74. Queen diverted and redirected those viewers away from BHB's channel to Queen's channel, then disparaging BHB while stealing BHB's content. Queen then asked Queen's audience to report BHB's live feeds so that the only live stream receiving monetization is Queen's. BHB is the one funding the trip and all the cost of the production, yet Queen is reaping the benefits of more viewers, better placement on the YouTube platform, and compensation Queen deprived BHB of. 75. In order for this count to survive summary judgment, the act must be intentional. C. Voiles vs. Sandia Mortgage Company, No. 2-94-0158, 1995. Plaintiff argues that she proved her claim for tortious interference with prospective economic advantage. The trial court found that, because of plaintiff's failure to prove that defendant's conduct was intentional, plaintiff has failed to prove a cause of action for tortious interference with prospective economic advantage. Because the record demonstrates that the defendant's conduct was intentional. Here, BHB has proven that Queen coordinated and conspired with others in a malicious, willful, and intentional act and aforethought to cause damage to BHB financially, personally, and professionally. Queen intentionally interfered with the lawful business being conducted by BHB to force BHB off the YouTube platform and for financial gain. Exhibits D and E are incorporated herein. Also, attached here too is Exhibit S, which references BHB's analytics from YouTube. This exhibit will show a substantial drop in viewership and other unfavorable analytics since the onset of this coordinated attack against BHB. Please see Exhibit T, which shows a substantial increase in Queen's viewership and other favorable analytics since the onset of this coordinated attack from Queen. 76. When Queen utters malicious and defaming words about BHB, Queen knows or should have known were false and malicious. When Queen incites Queen's audience with malicious and defaming words about BHB and her audience then harasses BHB among other damages, and when Queen elicits help from other creators to share and create similar defaming, malicious content, Queen assumes the responsibility for those actions which harmed and damaged BHB as a direct result of Queen's actions and the requested action of others. 77. Although this is one count, multiple claims reside and exist under this count. Therefore, Queen is in violation of tortious interference with business prospective economic advantage because defendants have deprived 1. BHB had a reasonable expectation of entering into or continuing a valid business relationship with a third party. 2. Queen knew of that expectation. 3. Queen intentionally and without justification interfered with that expectation. 4. Queen's interference prevented BHB's legitimate expectancy from ripening into a valid business relationship. 5. BHB suffered damages as a result of the interference which has caused damage to BHB financially, personally, and professionally. BHB is entitled to judgment against Queen, jointly and severally, in a sum in excess of $25,000 for compensatory damages, a sum in excess of $25,000 for exemplary and punitive damages, injunctive relief, and such other relief as the court may deem just and proper. Count 3. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. 78. BHB reaffirms prior paragraphs and incorporates them herein. 79. The tort of intentional infliction of emotional distress has 4 elements. 1. Extreme and outrageous conduct. 2. Intent by the defendant to cause or a reckless disregard of the probability of causing emotional distress. 3. Severe or extreme emotional distress suffered by the plaintiff. And 4. An actual and proximate causation of emotional distress by the defendants. Outrageous conduct. Tobias v. Winkler, 1987, 156 IL App. .3d 886, 509N.E.2d 1050. The conducts must be extreme and outrageous. The liability clearly does not extend to mere insults, indignities, threats, annoyances, petty oppressions, or trivialities. It has not been enough that the defendant has acted with an intent which is tortious or even criminal, or that he intended to inflict emotional distress, or even that his conduct has been characterized by malice, or a degree of aggravation which would entitle the plaintiff to punitive damages for another tort. Liability has been found only where the conduct has been so outrageous in character, and so extreme in degree, as to go beyond all possible bounds of decency. Restatement, 2nd, of Torts, Sector 46, Comment. D. 1965. Public Finance Corporation v. Davis, 1976, 66 IL 2d 85, 89-90, 360N.E.2d 765, 767. Courts may consider the frequency and duration of the defendant's conduct, particularly whether a pattern of conduct exists. When deciding whether conduct is extreme and/or outrageous, we must first look at what constitutes extreme and outrageous conduct. Whether certain conduct can be characterized as extreme and outrageous so as to support a cause of action for the tort of intentional infliction of emotional distress necessarily depends on the facts of each case. Tobias, 156 IL App. .3d at 897, 509N.E.2d at 1057. Where the plaintiff has sustained personal injuries due to the defendant's negligence or other personal tort, the plaintiff is entitled to recover all damages which are the natural and proximate result of the tort. City of Chicago v. McLean, 133 IL 148, 153, 24N.E.527, 528, 1890. Where the defendant's negligence inflicts an immediate physical injury, Illinois courts allow recovery for the mental disturbance accompanying the injury. In Babikian v. Mraz, 2011 IL App. 1st, 102579, 956N.E.2d 959, 353 IL December 831. The jury returned a verdict for the plaintiff in a medical malpractice action with separate line items for pain and suffering for permanent abdominal pain and emotional distress for a decline in her mental health. The appellate court rejected the defendant's claim that the award of emotional distress damages was duplicative of the plaintiff's recovery from pain and suffering. The court also rejected defendant's contention that emotional distress damages are allowed only in causes of action for intentional or negligent infliction of emotional distress. The court held that the rule in Illinois is just the opposite, that damages for emotional distress are available to prevailing plaintiffs in cases involving personal torts, including but not limited to medical negligence, citing Clark v. Children's Memorial Hospital, 2011 IL 108656, 353 IL December 254, 955. N.E.2D 1065, 2011, a wrongful birth case. ID paragraph 19, 956 N.E.2D at 964, 353 ill December at 836. See also Cummings vs. Jaw, 394 ill app, 3D 439, 915 N.E.2D 908, 333 ill December 837, 5th DST 2009, where the court affirmed a medical malpractice verdict for plaintiff including separate line items for pain and suffering and mental distress. Also, under certain circumstances, a plaintiff can recover damages for negligent infliction of emotional distress even in the absence of a physical impact that is well established and ingrained within Illinois law. See Ricky vs. Chicago Transit Author, 98 ill, 2D 546, 457 N.E.2D1, 75 ill December 211, 1983, Corgan vs. Muleying, 143 ill, 2D 296, 574 Section 30, page 15 of 36 N.E.2D 602, 158 ill December 489, 1991, Kohler vs. Cook County, 180 ill app.3D 425, 535 N.E.2D 1118, 129 ill December 353, 1st DST 1989, in Thornton vs. Garcini, 237 ill 2D 100, 928 N.E.2D 804, 809, 340 ill December 557, 562, 2010, the Illinois Supreme Court held that expert testimony is not required to recover damages for emotional distress, overruling Hiscott vs. Peters, 324 ill app.3D 114 at 126, 754 N.E.2D 839 at 850, 257 ill Dec 847 at 858, 2D DST 2001, which held that expert testimony was required to recover damages for emotional distress. Hiscott involved an appeal from a verdict for the plaintiff in a motor vehicle collision where the jury returned an itemized verdict for past medical expense, past pain and suffering, future pain and suffering, disability, disfigurement, and emotional distress. BHB contends and stipulates there was no physical injury to BHB. However, over the last 20 months preceding this action, Queen has to be aware that Queen's conduct of making daily videos and/or live streams for hours on end, in some cases a 10-hour live stream speaking ill of BHB and allowing Queen's audience to come up on panel one after another to condemn, mock and just damage the reputation of BHB, as listed in more detail under Nature of Action section, for no good purpose other than to cause pain and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Queen engaged in malicious and outrageous conduct every single day for over 10 months, all directed at BHB and sometimes the associates of BHB. 80. Queen has made over 50 or 60 videos, maybe more, and/or live stream broadcasts about BHB. There are too many to count. Queen has never in the history of Queen's channel ever made the number of videos, live streams, and/or posts about any other person or that level of commitment to any true crime case Queen has covered. Queen targeted BHB and continues to do so by proxy as the action is being litigated before this court. 81. Here in this matter, Queen has made multiple public statements and/or declarations regarding BHB, and Queen's conduct towards BHB is extreme and outrageous and goes beyond all possible bounds of decency. There is overwhelming evidence attached hereto outlining a coordinated attack on BHB concocted, orchestrated, and strategized by Queen and others Queen elicited for assistance. BHB reaffirms that BHB doesn't know these individuals nor has had any contact with these individuals prior to the attack. 1. It is well established by statements made by Queen and attached hereto in Exhibits D and E that Queen's actions were willful, intentional, and with malice to cause substantial harm to BHB. 2. In an effort to remove BHB from the YouTube platform by harassment, intimidation, mocking, watching, monitoring and keeping BHB under surveillance online and offline, colluding, and conspiring with others to inflict the maximum amount of distress on BHB. This has caused a great deal of distress to the BHB. 3. Due to the conduct of Queen, the actual and proximate causation of emotional distress by Queen's outrageous conduct has damaged BHB emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. The actions by Queen and those Queen elicited for assistance to attack BHB have negatively affected BHB, at times, leaving BHB not wanting to work on producing content, doing BHB's job, or broadcasting future live streams or videos, and making work next to impossible. No one should ever be subjected to what BHB was subjected to maliciously and for no other reason than to harm and damage BHB. BHB has gone from being a vibrant member of society to being a hermit in BHB's home when BHB is not working in the field. This conduct has damaged friendships because BHB is no longer moving about freely for fear someone is monitoring BHB's every move. BHB was stripped of her sense of security and dignity. Queen has posted, among other things, private photos of BHB at political events not publicly posted. Exhibit U. BHB has taken great care in privatizing all personal social media accounts, yet, Queen posts BHB's whereabouts on Queen's community tab. Why? Queen's behavior is putting BHB in physical danger and Queen has publicly laughed and appears to think it is funny and a joke. 82. Queen has stated that BHB is having sexual relations with other creators. This made BHB physically sick, throwing up, crying, and not wanting to leave the bed. No one should have to endure this conduct for simply covering true crime cases. This was an assault in an effort to force BHB off the YouTube platform so Queen could capitalize on the YouTube platform only and with Queen's select group of friends at the rest of the community's expense. This conduct is extreme and outrageous. Queen knowingly, willfully, and maliciously targets BHB and then would mock BHB and tease that BHB is going to lose BHB's mind. Encouraging Queen's audience to continue this campaign. Queen does not care and shows no remorse for Queen's conduct or what that conduct had on BHB. Queen's conduct was intentional, willful, and malicious. 83. BHB had to change BHB's entire lifestyle when Queen converted Queen's channel and platform into a weapon against BHB. 84. Although this is one count, multiple claims reside and exist under this count. Therefore, Queen is in violation of intentional infliction of emotional distress because Queen's actions were 1. Extreme and outrageous conduct, 2. Intent by the defendant to cause or a reckless disregard of the probability of causing emotional distress, 3. Severe or extreme emotional distress suffered by the plaintiff, and 4. Actual and proximate causation of emotional distress by the Queen's outrageous conduct that has caused damage to BHB financially, personally, and professionally. BHB is entitled to judgment against Queen, jointly and severally, in a sum in excess of $25,000 for compensatory damages, a sum in excess of $25,000 for exemplary and punitive damages, injunctive relief, and such other relief as the court may deem just and proper. Count 4, Civil conspiracy and concert of action. 85. BHB reaffirms prior paragraphs and incorporates them herein. 86. Civil conspiracy involves two or more persons who combine for the purpose of accomplishing, by their concerted action, either a lawful purpose by unlawful means or an unlawful purpose by lawful means. Smith v. Eli Lilly and Company, 137 Ill. 2d. 222, 1990, Vance v. Chandler, 231 Ill. App. 3d. 747, 1992. 87. In accordance with Illinois law, for BHB to plead and prove civil conspiracy in concert of action, BHB must demonstrate 1. A combination of two or more persons, 2. For the purpose of accomplishing either an unlawful purpose or a lawful purpose by unlawful means, 3. Concerted action, and 4. An overt tortious or unlawful act to further the plan. 88. As alleged in the Nature of Action section, BHB claims the following: 1. Coordination between Queen and others which includes inciting Turner's audience and eliciting help from other creators. 4. 2. The sole purpose of attacking, watching, monitoring, and to keep under surveillance online and offline, intimidate, harass, and cause disruption to BHB and BHB's YouTube channel, i.e. the individuals assisting Queen at Queen's request, know about this plan and intend for it to be carried out. 3. The help Queen elicited from others was a concerted effort to coordinate simultaneous defaming video that supports one another in Queen's effort to remove BHB from the YouTube platform, and 4. Multiple people assisting Queen at Queen's request actually carried and carries out some overt act that caused damage to BHB. 89. An Illinois Appellate Court, 1st District, 5th Division, found that the wife of an energy consulting company employee who assisted her husband with the establishment of competing businesses was liable on a conspiracy claim. Under this decision, even if Queen was acting on behalf of another, Queen would still be held accountable for Queen's part in said civil conspiracy. 90. In this matter, BHB acknowledged BHB's contract with YouTube that governs compensation among other things. This is the same contract and terms of service that governs Queen as well. Queen and BHB are also governed by YouTube's terms of service. These terms of service outline the do's and don'ts, of YouTube. One of these terms of service governs creators' conduct known as harassment and cyberbullying policies. Exhibit V. Under this directive, all individuals on the YouTube platform must follow and adhere to these policies to maintain their respective channel and/or account, whether acting as an audience member and subscriber or as a content creator. The very first paragraph states, "We don't allow content that targets someone with prolonged insults or slurs. We don't allow other harmful behavior, like threats or doxing." Under the monetization and other penalties it states, "In some rare cases, we may remove content or issue other penalties when a creator repeatedly encourages abusive audience behavior." Repeatedly targets, insults, and abuses an identifiable individual based on their intrinsic attributes across several uploads. Exposes an individual to risks of physical harm based on the local social or political context. Creates content that harms the YouTube community by persistently inciting hostility between creators for personal financial gain. 91. Queen has an independent duty under Queen's contract with YouTube and Google and a duty of care to audience subscribers/members and other creators, and Queen has violated that independent duty and duty of care. 92. The role of duty in civil conspiracy claims is at a crossroads. Relatively few courts have squarely addressed this critical issue. On one end of the spectrum, a developing line of case law in several jurisdictions imposes an independent duty requirement to restrain the spread of civil conspiracy liability to peripheral defendants. The leading case is from the California Supreme Court, which has held that liability for civil conspiracy is limited to those defendants that owed an independent duty to the specific plaintiff. On the other end is Delaware, which does not require an independent duty. Finally, some states, such as Illinois, inconsistently apply an independent duty rule. Queen publicly elicited the help of others. Therefore, Queen assumed responsibility for the actions of others who carried out those requests on Queen's behalf. 93. Courts and legal scholars have historically struggled to find common ground in delineating a civil conspiracy claim. For instance, some courts view civil conspiracy as a derivative action that requires an underlying tort to maintain a claim, while other courts recognize it as a separate and independent tort. BHB contends that either way this court applies this standard, BHB has met this standard whether or not Queen is required by this court to have an independent duty to BHB, one exists. Moreover, BHB contends whether or not this cause of action needs to be tethered to another cause of action or if it can stand on its own merit, BHB meets this standard either way it is applied. 94. At least one Illinois appellate court has reached the conclusion that there can be no civil conspiracy liability absent an independent duty owed by the defendant to the plaintiff. In Doe v. No, the 1st District, 6th Division, considered a civil conspiracy claim brought by a hospital patient against persons associated with her treating physician. After the patient contracted the HIV virus during surgeries performed by her doctor, she claimed that the doctor's partner and employer conspired not to reveal the surgeon's HIV status so as to gain consent to care and treatment that the plaintiff would otherwise decline. The court rejected this piling on of defendants, explaining that he duty to disclose risks to a patient rests exclusively with the doctor in a physician-patient relationship. No independent duty is imposed upon others. 95. YouTube is owned by Google. YouTube has special exemptions under Section 230. Section 230 is a section of Title 47 of the United States Code that was enacted as part of the Communications Decency Act of 1996, which is Title V of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, and generally provides immunity for online computer services with respect to third-party content generated by its users. As such, Queen is responsible for Queen's own conduct and cannot redirect that liability onto YouTube, Google, or any other company/entity/organization that has protection provided under this U.S. code. Moreover, Illinois courts also have steadfastly rejected efforts to hold publishers liable to the general public for negligent publication of information that causes harm to a reader. 96. Queen has vicarious liability for harm caused by others Queen has elicited for help and/or incited, such as her audience that does Queen's bidding on Queen's behalf. Exhibit X. Even in the absence of specific and/or direct instruction, Queen created an environment that cultivated the actions BHB has had to endure specifically, over the last 12 months, as a direct result of Queen's efforts, which had a boiling point in March 2023 and then another intense round when this action was initiated July 2023 through September 2023. 97. Vicarious liability or imputed liability is an indirect liability for the actions of another person, such as an employee's conduct falls under vicarious liability for the employer if it is the kind of which he or she is employed to perform, is within the authorized limits of time and space, and is performed for the purposes of serving the employer. BHB contends that BHB has no knowledge of whether Queen provides financial compensation to Queen's daily panel guests, whether the contract is either written or verbal, or if those panel guests are just daily volunteers. Queen directs those individuals online and offline. For example, Queen had a public conversation on Queen's YouTube channel with a daily panel guest at that time, Voices. Queen is heard on multiple occasions and on several different live stream broadcasts and on several different dates and times of live stream broadcasts directing Voices to send a binder to local law enforcement about BHB. When Queen directed Voice to send the defaming and malicious binder, Queen assumed responsibility for Voice's actions and the damage that action had on BHB. 98. Queen assumes responsibility for Queen's audience. When Queen directs Queen's audience to assume a screen name of blank screen to flash mob BHB's channel and chat, Queen assumes full responsibility for the resulting damages to BHB. Queen incites Queen's audience with language designed to elicit an emotional response from Queen's audience, turning Queen's audience into weapons. This is a calculated and strategic move designed for Queen to avoid the responsibility for Queen's actions. Queen attempted to avoid Queen's responsibility when Queen elicited help from others and Queen acquired that help. And when those requests were or carried out by Queen's audience at Queen's request, Queen is ultimately responsible for the damage sustained by BHB, financially, professionally, emotionally, and personally. 99. Queen assumes responsibility for Queen's audience when Queen directs Queen's audience and/or other creators to report BHB's channel to YouTube, also known as brigading. Queen assumes and is responsible for the resulting damages to BHB. 100. Queen assumes responsibility when Queen elicits help from others, either publicly and/or privately, to harm BHB in a coordinated effort and those efforts are carried out. 101. Queen assumes responsibility when Queen cultivates an environment on Queen's YouTube channel that any normal person would acknowledge would and/or could damage another individual financially, professionally, and/or personally. 102. Queen assumes responsibility when Queen disseminates false and misleading information about BHB and others then share the same false information, creating a web-like effect for maximum damage to BHB in an orchestrated and concerted action to the detriment of BHB. 103. Civil aiding and abetting is another type of vicarious liability that plaintiffs have attempted to apply in tort cases. As set forth in the Restatement, 2nd, of Tort Section 876, before harm resulting to a third person from the tortious conduct of another, one is subject to liability if he knows that the other's conduct constitutes a breach of duty and gives substantial assistance or encouragement to the other so to conduct himself. This theory, like the others discussed, has only been recognized in very limited contexts. Queen directed, coordinated, conspired, and concocted actions in which Queen assumed the responsibility of removing BHB from the YouTube platform with the assistance of others and at the express direction of Queen. Therefore, Queen is the responsible party in this action. 104. Although this is one count, multiple claims reside and exist under this count. Therefore, BHB has demonstrated 1. A combination of two or more persons, 2. For the purpose of accomplishing either an unlawful purpose or a lawful purpose by unlawful means, 3. Concerted action, and 4. An overt tortious or unlawful act to further the plan, which has caused damage to BHB financially, personally, and professionally. BHB is entitled to judgment against Queen, jointly and severally, in a sum in excess of $25,000 for compensatory damages, a sum in excess of $25,000 for exemplary and punitive damages, injunctive relief, and such other relief as the court may deem just and proper. Count 5, Negligence. 105, BHB reaffirms prior paragraphs and incorporates them herein. 106, Negligence is the failure to do something which a reasonably careful person would do, or the doing of something which a reasonably careful person would not do, under similar circumstances. Williams v. Connor, 228 Ill App, 3D 350, 364, 5th DIST, 1992. 107. In order to recover for negligence, a plaintiff must plead and prove that 1. A duty was owed to the plaintiff by the defendant, 2. Injuries or damages were sustained by the plaintiff, and 3. Defendant's breach of the duty owed to plaintiff was the proximate cause of plaintiff's injuries or damages. 108. At the most generalized level, it can be said that everyone owes another a reasonable duty of care to avoid harm to others. This is a legal duty separate from any moral duty to avoid harm. A breach of duty of care occurs when a person's conduct fails to meet an applicable standard of care. Whether a duty exists and, if so, the nature of that duty must be determined by the courts as a matter of law. Marshall v. Burger King Corporation, 355 Ill App, 3D 685, 688, 2D DST. 2005. In determining whether a duty exists under given circumstances, a court will consider the likelihood of injury, the foreseeability of that injury, the magnitude of the burden of eliminating or guarding against the risk, and the consequence of placing that burden on the defendant. Kirk v. Michael Reese Hospital and Medical Center, 117 Ill 2D 507, 526, Ill 1987, Largosa v. Ford Motor Company, 303 Ill App, 3D 751, 754, 1st DST 1999. Queen had a duty of care to BHB. That duty of care was breached. A content creator on any social media platform has a general duty of care to others as a matter of law. Content creators are held accountable for inciting their audience and are paying heavy criminal sanctions due to their conduct. Please see website link. Another recent event landed a blogger in jail. Please see website link. Queen has an absolute duty not to use Queen's platform as a weapon against another individual or to incite a mob either online or offline. An individual breaches a duty when he or she fails to comply with the applicable standard of care. In cases involving ordinary negligence, as opposed to professional negligence, a party breaches his duty if he fails to use reasonable care. Whether a duty has been breached is ordinarily a question of fact for a jury to decide. Yeager v. Illinois Bell Telephone Company, 281 Ill App, 3D 903, 908, 4th DST, 1996. Queen maliciously, willfully, with full knowledge and aforethought knew Queen's conduct would result in damage to BHB. Queen did not care. Queen displayed negligible cause of actions resulting in physical, emotional, mental, personal, financial, and professional harm to BHB, an individual who had never met Queen nor spoken with Queen prior to Queen's negligent actions against BHB. 109. The claimed injury must be the natural and probable result of the negligent act or omission, and be of such a character as to have been a foreseeable result of that negligence. However, it is not essential that the person charged with negligence should have foreseen the precise injury that resulted from his act or omission. Williams v. University of Chicago Hospitals, 179 Ill 2D 80, 87, Ill 1997. However, BHB contents Queen had knowledge Queen's actions would cause detrimental damage to BHB. 110. After reviewing the duty, breach of duty, and causation, we need to look at the elements for proximate causation. Proximate causation consists of two elements, 1. Actual cause, and 2. Legal cause. Mengelson v. Ingalls Health Ventures, 323 Ill App, 3D 69, 75, 1st DST 2001. When determining whether a defendant's conduct is the actual cause of an injury, a but-for analysis is applied. Price vs. Philip Morris Incorporated, IL 2005. The question is whether the injury would have occurred but for the defendant's conduct. ID at 269. If the injury would have occurred even absent the defendant's conduct, then there is no actual causation and, accordingly, no proximate causation. ID proximate cause is not established where the causal connection is contingent, speculative, or merely possible. Mengelson, 323 LAP, 3D at 75. Here, BHB contends that some creators have spoken ill of BHB on their channels. Queen decided speaking ill of BHB was not giving Queen the results Queen expected. However, in this matter, Queen went too far when Queen decided to take it upon herself to seek out others to assist Queen in removing BHB from the YouTube platform permanently. Queen concocted, conspired, and elicited help from others that went from just merely speaking ill of BHB to a coordinated attack to remove BHB from the YouTube platform entirely. Any normal person would be able to acknowledge this would cause damage to another individual. Queen made a conscious decision to cause damage to BHB and felt BHB had no remedies at BHB's disposal to put an end to Queen's conduct against BHB. The degree of Queen's actions is outrageous and goes beyond any possible bounds of decency. Queen became obsessed with BHB so much so that Queen lost all control over Queen's own behavior and conduct. Queen's conduct was extreme, outrageous, malicious, and intentional. 111. Once actual cause is established, the next question is whether Queen may be held legally responsible. Legal cause is a more imprecise concept than actual cause. In order for a defendant's conduct to be the legal cause of an injury, the injury to the plaintiff must be reasonably foreseeable when the act or omission occurs. Watson vs. Enter. Leasing Company, 325 IL-AP, 3D 914. First DST 2001. Queen's conduct goes outside the bounds of any possible decency and therefore Queen should have known, as any reasonable person would, that Queen's conduct would have detrimental consequences to BHB. If this coordinated attack had been carried out successfully, it would have had more detrimental damages than the ones claimed herein. 112. There can be more than one proximate cause of any injury. ID. See also Countryman vs. County of Winnebago, 135 IL-AP, 3D 384, 392, 2D DST 1985. When there is more than one proximate cause of an injury, one who is negligent cannot avoid liability merely because another person negligently contributed to cause the same injury. This is true even though the injury would not have occurred but for the negligence of the other person. Queen, 193 IL-AP, 3D at 492, see also Sears vs. Coy's Brothers Equipment Incorporated, 110 IL-AP, 3D 884, 889, First DST 1982. BHB contends if it was not for Queen, BHB would not have sustained the injuries and/or damages that are the subject matter of this action. However, BHB acknowledges Queen is not the only one that has or continues to cause damage to BHB. 113. Although this is one count, multiple claims reside and exist under this count. Therefore, BHB has demonstrated, 1. A duty was owed to the plaintiff by the defendant, 2. Injuries or damages were sustained by the plaintiff, and 3. Defendant's breach of the duty owed to the plaintiff was the proximate cause of plaintiff's injuries or damages, which has caused damage to BHB financially, personally, and professionally. BHB is entitled to judgment against Queen, jointly and severally, in a sum this honorable deems just and proper for compensatory damages, a sum this honorable deems just and proper for exemplary and punitive damages, injunctive relief, and such other relief as the court may deem just and proper. Count 6, Unjust Enrichment. 114, BHB reaffirms prior paragraphs and incorporates them herein. 115, BHB must prove each of the following 5 elements. 1. An enrichment, 2. An impoverishment, 3. A connection between the enrichment and the impoverishment, 4. The absence of justification for the enrichment and impoverishment, and 5. The absence of a remedy provided by law in order to establish and maintain a cause of action for unjust enrichment. 116. As one might expect, some courts pay no mind to whether a claim for unjust enrichment is brought alone or with other causes of action. In Raintree Homes Incorporated v. Village of Long Grove, for example, the Illinois Supreme Court noted that the plaintiffs have no substantive claim grounded in tort, contract, or statute. Therefore, the only substantive basis for the claim is restitution to prevent unjust enrichment. Yet this fact did not doom the plaintiff's complaint. Unfortunately, though, the Supreme Court did not analyze the issue. This position, that unjust enrichment can be brought by itself, makes some intuitive sense. It seems odd to make the availability of one cause of action contingent on the existence of some other cause of action. And if unjust enrichment simply requires that the defendant retain some benefit to the plaintiff's detriment that he ought not to be allowed to keep, then what does a second or third claim have to do with it? Queen was unjustly enriched at the expense of and damage to BHB. Queen has unjustly retained a benefit to BHB's detriment, and Queen's retention of the benefit violates the fundamental principles of justice, equity, and good conscience. It is unclear what the position of this court will render related to this cause of action and whether it has to be litigated independently or whether it will be litigated contingent upon another cause of action. BHB argues that no matter how this court applies the standard, BHB can and will establish proof of this count and cause of action whether it stands alone on its own merit or whether it is contingent upon one of the other five preceding causes of action. 117, in the 2011 case Cleary v. Philip Morris Incorporated, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals squarely confronted the question of whether Illinois law recognizes an independent cause of action for unjust enrichment, or whether unjust enrichment must always be tied to another underlying claim found in tort, contract, or statute. The court reviewed 3 Illinois Supreme Court decisions and noted that the Illinois Supreme Court has articulated the elements of unjust enrichment without reference to a separate underlying claim in tort, contract, or statute. From these authorities, the court concluded, the Illinois Supreme Court appears to recognize unjust enrichment as an independent cause of action. The court, however, could not avoid mentioning the Martis decision that suggests the opposite, namely, that an unjust enrichment claim cannot stand untethered from an underlying claim. Suggesting one way to make sense of these apparently conflicting cases, the court focused on the disagreement over whether unjust enrichment requires wrongful conduct. Unjust enrichment is a common law theory of recovery or restitution that arises when the defendant is retaining a benefit to the plaintiff's detriment, and this retention is unjust. What makes the retention of the benefit unjust is often due to some improper conduct by the defendant, and usually this improper conduct will form the basis of another claim against the defendant in tort, contract, or statute. So, if an unjust enrichment claim rests on the same improper conduct alleged in another claim, then the unjust enrichment claim will be tied to this related claim and, of course, unjust enrichment will stand or fall with the related claim. 118, as outlined in the Nature of Action section, Queen was not very popular prior to targeting BHB. Queen's numbers were low and most likely not making much monetarily from the YouTube platform or either channel Queen utilized and/or operated. By attacking BHB in a variety of ways as outlined above, Queen received an overwhelming amount of financial and/or other monetary gains as a result of those malicious actions, and Queen damaged BHB far more than financially or monetarily in order to reap that reward and benefit. Queen profited off harassing, disparaging, defaming, stalking, monitoring, threatening, intimidating, and theft of BHB's content for over 20 months. Queen unjustly enriched Queen at the expense and detriment of BHB. 119, as outlined in the Nature of Action section, Queen illegally aired BHB's content and received overwhelming financial and other monetary compensation, especially during October 2022 and December 2022. During the time Queen simultaneously aired multiple live streams that BHB broadcasted, Queen received hundreds to thousands of dollars in super chats, super stickers, direct cash from cash-type apps, and other monetary benefits and rewards, all while diminishing BHB in the eyes of the public while stealing BHB's content for profit. BHB paid for all the expenses of production, including but not limited to lodging, gas, equipment, food, travel, and a multitude of other things when Queen sat home and just stole BHB's content and was financially rewarded for doing so. Nothing stopped Queen from paying for Queen's own costs of travel to produce her own content, but Queen chose to steal BHB's. BHB is unable to raise copyright infringement in this court due to improper venue and jurisdiction, but BHB is not barred from raising it and exhibiting evidence for the cause of action of unjust enrichment. 120, as outlined in the Nature of Action section, Queen raised funds for this litigation by defaming BHB. This action would not have been brought if not for Queen's actions. BHB went out of BHB's way to express to Queen to leave BHB alone, but the attacks kept getting worse and worse. Finally, BHB had to take action. BHB declared publicly on BHB's YouTube channel if Queen didn't stop, BHB would take legal and that legal action would cost Queen thousands of dollars. Queen doubled down on the attacks and used whatever audience members and content creators would help attack BHB and keep BHB under surveillance non-stop. BHB sent a cease and desist letter that Queen ignored on 3 separate attempts by the United States Postal Service. Then BHB emailed the cease and desist letter and Queen went live expressing that Queen just read Queen's emails and then proceeded to publicly attack BHB from Queen's YouTube channel during a live stream broadcast. The more Queen insults BHB, the more money rolls in. After BHB has enough and initiates legal action, Queen publicly threatens BHB and then requests thousands in donations, resulting in Queen being unjustly enriched for Queen's malicious, willful behavior and conduct. 121. Over the last 20 months Queen has profited off of BHB, and to BHB's detriment. Queen should not be able to retain that enrichment. 122. Queen has maliciously, willfully, intentionally, and with a forethought publicly attacked BHB. BHB was Queen's content and primary source of revenue for the last 20 months, unjustly enriching Queen at the expense and detriment of BHB. There is a direct link between Queen's enrichment and the detriment of BHB. There was legitimate justification for Queen's tortious conduct and Queen's lack of moral turpitude. However, the damage Queen caused BHB needs to be rectified before this court. 123. Although this is one count, multiple claims reside and exist under this count. Therefore, BHB must prove each of the following 5 elements: 1. An enrichment, 2. An impoverishment, 3. A connection between the enrichment and the impoverishment, 4. The absence of justification for the enrichment and impoverishment, and 5. The absence of a remedy provided by law, which has caused damage to BHB financially, personally, and professionally. BHB is entitled to judgment against Queen, jointly and severally, in a sum this Honorable deems just and proper for compensatory damages, a sum this Honorable deems just and proper for exemplary and punitive damages, injunctive relief, and such other relief as the court may deem just and proper. Prayer for relief. Wherefore, plaintiff prays for judgment in its favor of plaintiff and against defendants jointly and severally, as follows. 1. Queen is found liable for defamation and BHB is awarded damages in an amount in excess of $25,000, to be determined at trial, and an award punitive damages in excess of $25,000, to be determined at trial. 2. Queen is found liable for tortious interference with prospective economic advantage and BHB is awarded damages in an amount in excess of $25,000, to be determined at trial, and an award punitive damages in excess of $25,000, to be determined at trial. 3. Queen is found liable for intentional infliction of emotional distress and BHB is awarded damages in an amount in excess of $25,000, to be determined at trial, and an award punitive damages in excess of $25,000, to be determined at trial. 4. Queen is found liable for civil conspiracy in concert of action and BHB is awarded damages in an amount in excess of $25,000, to be determined at trial, and an award punitive damages in excess of $25,000, to be determined at trial. 5. Queen is found liable for negligence and BHB is awarded damages this, and an award punitive damages this Honorable Court deems just and proper, to be determined at trial. 6. Queen is found liable for unjust enrichment and BHB is awarded damages this, and an award punitive damages this Honorable Court deems just and proper, to be determined at trial. 7. If the court believes Queen has violated criminal law with Queen's actions, BHB prays this Honorable Court will request a criminal investigation to be pursued and requested by this court. 8. That Queen be ordered to remove all videos, including but not limited to, content referenced in this complaint from Queen's YouTube platform and bar Queen from making any further defamatory statements about BHB on Queen's YouTube channel and or any other public social media platform. 9. For an award of prejudgment and post-judgment interest. 10. For BHB's reasonable attorney's fees and other such costs incurred in this action, and 11. For such other and further relief as the court may deem just and proper. Under penalties as provided by law pursuant to Section 1 to 109 of the Code of Civil Procedure, the undersigned certifies that the statements set forth in this instrument are true and correct, except as to matters therein stated to be on information and belief, and as to such matters the undersigned certifies as aforesaid that he verily believes the same to be true. Respectfully submitted. By Bullhorn Betty, pro se plaintiff. Dated October 18, 2023. I am not a lawyer and I do not claim to be one. The following information is my opinion and my opinion alone. All documents featured on this channel pertaining to this lawsuit have all been purchased by the channel owner, and at no time has this channel received information or documents from any other channel, including the plaintiff or defendant in this case. This video is the amended complaint on the Bullhorn Betty vs QB legal case. This document and all exhibits were filed in the Circuit Court of the 9th Judicial Circuit, Knox County, Illinois by Bullhorn Betty on October 18, 2023. This new document is very poorly constructed. It is verbose and fails to use correct legal terminology and grammar. The more you read this 225-page document, the more confusing it becomes as to the real intent for the legal case and for outcomes. There are many channel owners now mentioned which were not previously. There is evidence of prevarication throughout the document which provides a perception that the intent of the document is to cause serious damages to those named other than the defendant. There is also information in this document that does not relate to the case. There is so much more I could say about this asinine document filing, but this video is long enough as it is. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comment section below. I will see you next time.